Hello, welcome back to IM Movies. Today we're diving into the 1997 American superhero film called Spawn. But before we jump into the details, make sure to show us some love by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now, let's get right into it. The story begins in a military airbase in Hong Kong, where an unknown man attacks the airport's control room and kills everyone. Then, he sets up a robot rocket launcher he's brought with him and readies it for launch. Now, as soon as his targets emerge from the plane, he pinpoints it at them and fires it. However, a strange-looking man watches this unfold, and the plane soon goes up in flames, killing everyone including bystanders. The killer is revealed to be Simmons, a former soldier turned agent. Then, Simmons sets the robot to self-destruct in 10 seconds, and the control room is soon engulfed in fire. The news of Simmons' doings appears on TV, and his boss, Jason Wynn, is impressed. Meanwhile, Wynn has been in a discussion with a clown-like demon known as the Violator. This demon has been sent from hell to recruit men for the devil's work, and Wynn is one of them. Now, Wynn had promised the Violator a powerful biochemical weapon that could wipe out millions of people in exchange for wealth and power, but it seems not to be ready yet. Wynn asks for more time, and the Violator grants it. However, the Violator also orders Wynn to send Simmons on a suicide mission, stating that Malebolgia, the ruler of hell, wants to use him to create a very special soldier. The next day, Simmons' best friend and co-worker Terry Fitzgerald waits for him as they prepare to go to work. Later, Simmons shows up and he's greeted by his dog, Spaz. Then Simmons joins Terry in his car and they both head out to work. On their way, Terry tells Simmons that the airport incident resulted in many civilian casualties, stating that Wynn's recent missions have caused a lot of innocent deaths than expected. However, the same strange-looking man from the airport keeps watching as they drive by. Shortly after they get into the facility, Simmons confronts Wynn, asking him why he didn't keep the airport kill zone clear of innocent bystanders, but Wynn describes it as an unfortunate but necessary sacrifice. On hearing this, Simmons says he doesn't want a part in it, and tells Wynn to send Jessica Priest, one of Wynn's top assassins, next time. However, Wynn claims that he has the power to send anyone he wishes, stating that Simmons must follow his orders. Then Simmons decides to quit on the spot, but Wynn says he can't quit just like that, and asks if there is anything he could do to change his mind. Simmons doesn't want anything, stating that he has made up his mind. Subsequently, Wynn agrees to initiate his transfer, but on the condition that Simmons carries out one last mission. Simmons is expected to infiltrate a biochemical weapons plant in North Korea and carefully destroy all the biochemical viruses in it. Sensing this to be a good cause, Simmons accepts the mission. The next day, Simmons sneaks into the biochemical facility and takes out some of the guards. As he advances into the biochemical storage room, he sees explosives strapped to the biochemical containers and he becomes confused. Just then, Wynn shows up and states that the mission has changed. This is when Simmons realizes that Wynn had no intentions of carefully getting rid of the biochemical weapons. However, Simmons reminds Wynn that there are towns located close to the plant, and blowing up the biochemical plant will result in the death of over 8,000 people in these towns. However, Wynn states that the local people there will serve as test subjects to the virus, but Simmons rejects this idea and points his gun at Wynn. Immediately, Jessica shoots Simmons in the leg and pours some liquid gas on him. Then, Wynn throws his cigarette at Simmons, setting him on fire, and subsequently blows up the biochemical plant. Now, Simmons gets badly burnt and dies in the fire. Simmons wakes up in an abandoned church in Rat City to see the Violator mocking him for his looks. Later, he descends down to an alley where he finally gets to see how scary he looks. However, Simon thinks he died recently, but he soon encounters the strange-looking man again. This man explains to Simmons that 5 years have passed since his death and welcomes him to Rat City, describing it as a holy place for all. Subsequently, Simmons also makes friends with a little homeless boy named Zach. Later, Simmons successfully finds his way back home and sees a clown entertaining kids. He soon realizes that he now has a daughter named Cayenne, and it's her 5th-year birthday. Simmons feels betrayed seeing that his wife, Wanda, is now married to his best friend Terry, as he secretly watches them get romantic. Later, Spaz senses Simmons' presence and rushes to meet him. Cayenne goes after Spaz and offers some candy to Simmons, but Wanda sees this and rushes to grab her daughter as she calls out to Terry for help. Terry tries to chase him away, but he looks too weak to stand on his own. The clown notices this and offers to carry Simmons away. The clown carries Simmons back to the alley, where he finally reveals his true identity. Later, Simmons explains that his body feels like it's about to explode, and the Violator explains to him that it's just his necroplasmic body in its larvae stage. However, Simmons asks the Violator to take him to the hospital, but the Violator reminds him that he's been dead for a long time. Then the Violator begins to jog his memory to remind him of how he died in the fire and was sent to hell. The Violator shows Simmons that he had ended up in hell, where Malebolgia offered him a deal to lead his army in exchange for a second chance to see Wanda, which he agreed to. Malebolgia had also instructed Simmons to kill Jason Wynn for him. However, Simmons refuses to believe this, prompting the Violator to teleport him to his gravesite. At the graveyard, Simmons is shocked to see his tomb and soon begins to dig through his remains. Then, he sees a locket carrying the picture of him and Wanda, and he screams out loud. Meanwhile, 3 Satanists had visited the graveyard earlier, attempting to conjure the devil to see Simmons, and decided to approach him, thinking the devil might have sent him to them in regard to their prayers. Then one of them decides to place his hands on Simmons's body, prompting him to angrily hit him, and they all run away. At this point, Simmons gets covered in a necroplasmic armor, and the Violator proclaims him Spawn, the general of Hell's army. Nevertheless, the Violator continues to mock Simmons, and later teleports him back to the alley. Simmons tests out his new armor and finds it befitting for revenge. Then, he decides it's time to pay Jason Wynn a visit, but the strange-looking man, who now identifies himself as Cogliostro, appears to him once again and warns him that his actions will have serious consequences. Cogliostro tells Simmons that he was once a Hell's spawn, but has successfully freed his soul from the devil and now fights for heaven. The next day, at the A6 headquarters, Wynn watches in excitement as Terry defends him on a live TV interview against reports that he's been actively involved in some violent attacks around the world. Meanwhile, Wynn's biochemical weapon named Heat-16 is finally ready. Wynn plans to detonate this virus across all continents and create a vaccine that he would monopolize and only sell to those who obey him. Subsequently, Simmons breaks into the A6 armory and arms himself with a formidable weapon. Later, Terry walks into Wynn's office, and Wynn praises him for always defending him in the media. However, Terry expresses his displeasure and accuses Wynn of being unethical in his dealings, stating that he's tired of defending him and promises to raise a panel to investigate his operations. On hearing this, Wynn begins to suggest to Terry that Wanda and Kyan would be in danger if he does that, stating that he runs the agency as he deems fit. Now, as they are about to leave, Terry spots a special ops file on Wynn's desk and steals it. Subsequently, they both arrive at a World Leaders Conference, and Wynn warmly greets several guests as they praise him for his recent achievements in developing Heat-16. Terry soon gets a call that there's been a security breach at the agency's armory. Terry swiftly reports it to Wynn, who then suggests that they leave immediately. However, Simmons breaks in through the roof and seizes Wynn by the throat, reminding them of how he'd set him on fire, then throws him on a table. Simmons also Terry as he accuses him of betrayal, but Terry says Wanda was devastated when he died. Simmons proceeds to kill Wynn, but Jessica's priest appears and manages to shoot Simmons. At this point, Simmons realizes that he also has healing abilities. After watching his body heal, Simmons reappears and kills Jessica by shooting her off the railings. However, more soldiers appear, and Simmons escapes the building. Soon, medical teams arrived at the scene of the incident. Subsequently, Wynn and the Violator secretly discuss the delivery of the Heat-16 at the back of one of the ambulances. The Violator is excited about it, and also advises Wynn to connect the Heat-16's detonator to his heart, stating that no one will sort to assassinate him, kind of like an insurance policy. However, the Violator has a different plan. He knows that Simmons will want to kill Wynn, subsequently initiating the apocalypse. The next day, Simmons watches as Wanda gives a speech about the effect of the North Korean incident in a press conference. She explains that even after 5 years, millions of people are still suffering from the effect of the virus. On hearing this, Simmons realizes he's done the world more harm than good, and he's now determined to right his wrongs. On his way out, he hears Kyan's voice and briefly spends time with her. On the other hand, the Violator begins to spend more time having fun rather than making sure Simmons keeps his end of the deal. So, Malebolgia summons him to Hell to caution him. However, the Violator expresses his displeasure to Malebolgia, stating that he should be the one leading Hell's army and not Simmons. Regardless, Malebolgia orders him to make sure that Simmons is ready when the virus is released, giving him a last chance to prove himself. Now after the conference, Wanda calls out to Kyan and Simmons quickly leaves the place on hearing her voice. Soon Terry arrives at the place and hurriedly takes Wanda and Kyan away, stating that he had been attacked and wouldn't want to take any chances. However, they had to leave Spaz behind as they couldn't find him. Meanwhile, Spaz has refused to leave Simmons alone and has chosen to go everywhere with him. At the alley, a man beats up Zach for refusing to eat rotten food, but Simmons shows up and flings him away. Simmons is about to kill the man, but Zach defends him, stating that the man is his father. Subsequently, Wynn goes under the knife to connect the detonator to his heart as the Violator had suggested. Later, as Simmons arranges his weapons, he soon deducts that the Violator was responsible for his death and decides to confront him, asking him why he was chosen to lead Hell's army. Surprisingly, the Violator happily takes credit for Simmons' death, stating that Simmons is the perfect man for the job, adding that his covert missions were all preparing him for the position. Then, Simmons grabs the Violator by the throat and pushes him away. The Violator threatens to kill Simmons, but Spaz decides to join the fight by urinating on the Violator. Then, the Violator grabs Spaz and threatens to kill him if Simmons doesn't keep his end of the deal, but Simmons shoots him first. This makes the Violator angrily reveal his demonic form, and they soon begin to fight, as they both fall from the church down into the alley. However, the Violator later slams Simmons into the spiked fence of the church, and then reverts back to his clown form. Then, the Violator begins to mock Simmons, and even threatens to kill Wanda right away, and Simmons warns him to stay away from her. Subsequently, the Violator leaves Simmons hanging on the fence, but Cogliostro soon comes to his rescue. Simmons' back begins to heal, but he soon faints from the pain, and when he finally regains consciousness, he sees Cogliostro's blade on his throat, which he subsequently removes. Cogliostros explains to Simmons that the decisions they make will determine the outcome of the war between heaven and hell, stating that he must learn to let go of his earthly affiliations and also learn to forgive. Later, Cogliostro decides to teach Simmons how to use his necroplasmic armor perfectly, stating that guns are futile in defeating a demon like the Violator. In a short time, Simmons masters his armor and is set to face the Violator. As he prepares to leave, he submits his guns to Cogliostro, putting complete faith in his armor as he determines to stop the Violator once and for all. He also hands Spaz's collar to Zach, asking him to find the dog. Subsequently, Simmons finds a bike and soon begins to trail the Violator. Simmons finds the Violator driving a truck and attempts to stop him. However, the Violator attempts to crush Simmons several times and even pours oil on the road, causing Simmons to skid. The Violator turns around to finally crush Simmons, but Simmons turns his armor into a rock-solid form and soon destroys the truck. At home, Terry decides to check the content of the disc he stole from Wynn's office and soon realizes what Wynn is about to do. Then he quickly contacts a journalist and sends the file to her. Just as the email is sent, Wynn walks in holding a gun against Wanda and proceeds to destroy the computer, taking them hostage. Subsequently, they hear the doorbell ring, and Wynn instructs Wanda to go answer the door. Soon they realize it's the Violator. Later, Simmons arrives and sees Wanda tied up to a stake. Wynn puts a knife to Wanda's throat and asks Simmons to choose between saving her and leading Hell's army. Simmons doesn't respond and Wynn stabs Wanda in the chest. Seeing this, Simmons beats Wynn up, and as he is about to kill him, Wynn warns that if he dies, Kyan will die too, because the virus will detonate. Simmons decides to reconsider his decision, but he also carefully uses his necroplasmic power to remove the device from Wynn's heart. Seeing that his plans are not working, the Violator, who had been pretending to be Wanda, charges at Simmons and partially stabs a knife into his throat, making him unable to heal. Then he changes back to his clown form, and Wynn realizes that he had been deceived on hearing that the Violator wanted him dead all along. Then, the Violator decides to kill Wanda for real this time just to trigger Simmons, but Cogliostro comes to her rescue and the Violator escapes to Hell. Subsequently, Simmons and Cogliostro decide to take the battle to him in Hell. They both arrive in Hell and soon face off with the Violator in his monster form. While fighting, the Violator manages to Cogliostro a blow, sending him into the deep part of Hell while Simmons continues to fight the demon from behind. The fight continues and Simmons manages to cut the Violator so badly that he disappears. Seeing this, Melgolbia appears and orders his army to bring him Simmons' head. However, Simmons uses his power to wipe out the majority of them before escaping with Cogliostro back to Earth. Zach returns with Spaz, and it seems to be over, however. The Violator reappears behind Simmons and begins to attack him. The Violator beats Simmons up and attempts to chop off his head, but Cogliostro encourages Simmons to use his armor. He does this, causing spikes to emerge from his body into the Violator's mouth. Simmons finally cuts off the Violator's head. However, the Violator's head continues to taunt them and threatens to return before melting back to Hell. The police and media soon arrive at Terry's residence, having received the incriminating evidence. Wynn is then arrested, and Terry happily unites with his family. Simmons, realizing there is no place for him in Wanda's world anymore, dedicates himself to justice rather than yielding to his lust for vengeance. I love how the storyline ultimately leads Simmons to a crossroads where he must decide the kind of legacy he wants to leave behind. I also love how Simmons' journey became a saga of self-discovery and redemption in a world where the line between good and evil is often blurred. And the movie ends here. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.